Robin. Good afternoon. Welcome to the third in our latest series of Creative Toolkits, as it was called. And we just talked about how much it's evolved over the series, Robin. This is our fourth or fifth delivery of this program. And the things we were talking about back at the beginning, AI wasn't even a thing, was it?
No, not at all. Not at all. So, yeah, just a quick intro for me. Hi, everybody. Welcome, Tim. So, this webinar series has been put on by Aspect, a consortium of universities, which I would take it everybody here is a part of a member university. And we're really focused on promoting and pushing forward the area of shape commercialization. So that's the arts, humanities, social sciences. And by commercialization, we really mean how do we sustain impact? It's not about making money, specifically not about making money for the universities, but keeping things going, building things, scaling things, and of which this particular webinar is something of a firm favorite of mine. I'm really looking forward to it. So just by way of, if you want to go for the micro credential, please use the QR code here. Lucy will also drop it in the
I'll
chat
put the
once or
URL in the
twice.
chat, and I'll also put in the chat the YouTube link so you can watch if you've missed any of this series. We've had two sessions so far. They're both already on YouTube, and you can also watch some of the previous series where we talk about webinars, podcasts, videos, Canva, communications, strategy, marketing strategy, all sorts of good stuff. So you've got a whole bank of information there as well. So lots of bits. But yeah, we'll leave that one up there. But this is what this series is all about. And I say when we started, AI was just this very distant thing that none of us were talking about. We've had a really great session with Jonas looking at that foundation landscape, which the third time we've run it, and every time we do it, it's moved. Designing effective AI workflows with Nick on Tuesday, which did blow my mind a little bit. Robin, you were loving that, weren't you? I found that great tools, but I was thinking about how I could practically apply those to my task and how I can make my life easier with them. So that's a bit of homework for me. I did prototype platform app. Hello, Tim. And then you can see next week we've got Joyanne with practical website projects, AI support, demonstrating impact, evidence, and value, and gamification. So lots of different flavors of how we can use these tools, which we were just saying before it went live is the word we like to use. Now, this is a Zoom webinar. So please talk to us in chat. I will be keeping an eye on the questions. I'll be asking Tim things as they come up in the moment and trying to make this as engaging and interactive, very practical. The whole point of all of these workshops is we want you to get two or three nuggets that you go away and explore or apply to your project. Like we were talking about LinkedIn on Tuesday and how we could use that tool to reach people we might want to share or engage in our projects. This is all these things that we hope you get two or three pieces you can take away and apply. Questions will be around the tools, the applications. If you want to look at the ethics or how you apply them in your research or with your university, please talk to your institution about that. We can't offer advice on that level. Obviously, Robin is University of Bristol, I'm University of Bath, but we wouldn't want to be giving any perspective on that. That's something that we'd like you to take away, or who might pay for these tools. We try as much as we can to look at the free tools so you can go away and explore safely without any investment so you can work out whether it's worth it or not. So keep doing as you have been doing and just keep asking us lots of questions, and no question is stupid. So if there's anything you really want to know, if you want to just ask it in the chat and I'll ask Tim,
And
welcome.
thank you, Lucy. And if people ask questions, I may even be able to answer them. Who knows? But I will be honest. Things move so quickly, and there will be many cases where there are people on this webinar who probably know more about the subject than I do, and maybe I'm one page further ahead, or one chapter further ahead in one area. But hopefully, I can share some of the things which are
And
worth.
the ways you've applied these technologies, what I'm really looking forward to, because sometimes, like with Nick, it was just it was quite expansive. So I actually used to, oh, here's how I could move my project forward. Here's how I could apply it. But
I'd be
welcome, Tim.
Thank you very much. I'll be really keen to see some of the stuff in chat as well. So please use that. Use that.
Well, you will be asking questions, I know, which is
I will
good.
be. Right. So I'm going to do the wise thing and hide behind some slides. Right. So I think that's the best thing I can do here. So you don't see my lovely face as much, and hopefully you're seeing my slide deck.
I am indeed.
Excellent. And obviously everything's all over the screen, so I can't see what I'm doing. But there we go. Right. So techie wise, I'm set up. So hopefully we're all in the right place. It's good to see so many people joining. Um, what I want us to do is I'm going to take us from idea to prototype, and the subtitle of this is like my promise. By the time you leave here, I want you to be able to take an idea out of your head and turn it into something a funder, a partner, a participant can actually click or use. not a pitch deck, not a one pager, but like a working thing. I'm going to do that across like 5 chapters. I'm going to focus on problem, hypothesis, plan, build, and ship. And we're going to do that as much as possible in plain English without any jargon. I'm not going to try and fixate on one framework or one tool. And questions are really welcome, as I say. So please drop any questions in the chat and I will try and answer them. So 2 seconds about me, and then I promise we'll get on with things. So I'm Tim Robinson. I've got 20 plus years of working with organizations to help them to fix how they work. So I've worked with teams, individuals, teams, organizations, and I tend to work at senior levels of organizations about their transformation. And over the last 4 years, I've really focused in on AI because it's been the most powerful tool I've found for effective change. So with that said, I've shipped a few products, and some of those I'll talk a little bit about as we go through, not really to kind of blow my own trumpet, but as examples of my journey. And yeah, I've trained up a bunch of people on how they can use AI in their organizations, and I co-authored a book. Now, I don't tell you those things because I want to feel good about myself. I just want to show that what I'm talking about here comes from experience and practice rather than just slides and reading books.
You love this stuff. We talked about rabbit holes on Tuesday. This is your happy place, isn't it?
Very much so. I do love this. Although this format's a bit off-putting, right? So knowing you're speaking to a full room but not seeing them is a bit strange. So I'm looking forward to the chats coming in. Lucy, hopefully you can monitor the chat, and if anything comes up, you can shout out.
I will indeed.
Thank you so much. Great. So as Lucy kind of touched towards, I want you to bring your skepticism with you. It's a feature, not a bug. So when I start showing you what generative AI can do, some of you are going to feel a pull towards questions about how these models are trained, what they cost in energy, whose labor went into them, who profits, who's left out. They're all really good questions. These tools very much aren't perfect, and you know that. So I'm really not going to be here to defend how they're built or what they cost, because frankly, some of it is indefensible. But I've decided to use them with my eyes open and to do good work. So some of the projects that I'm building and have built are about helping the most lonely and deprived people in the UK. So I'm trying to use them for good, not for bad. But yeah, keep your skepticism. As I say, it's a feature, not a bug. And hopefully it's one of the most valuable things you brought with you today. So here's the one sentence I want us to hold onto in the session. Generative AI collapses the distance between imagination and implementation. The gap between the moment you have an insight and the moment you have something to show somebody, that gap's where most ideas die. Not because the idea is generally bad, but because the cost of crossing it historically was just too high. You needed a developer, a designer, grants, teams, 6 months. And by the time you had something that you could actually show someone, the moment had passed. The world had moved on, your collaborator had moved on, you maybe lost your nerve a little bit about what you were building. So what's changed radically is the cost of crossing the gap, and it's dropped through the floor. So a working prototype now is the cheapest bridge between an insight or an idea in your head and a conversation with someone who can fund it, use it, partner on it, or give you feedback. That's really the whole focus of this session, and everything from here on is just going to be how you can do that effectively from my experience. So first up, the thing I want to plant a flag on is that the risk in early stage work isn't that you can't build the thing. The tools that we're going to talk about mean that almost anyone can build almost anything, like incredibly quickly. The risk is that you build the wrong thing beautifully, convincingly, but expensively. So every idea hides at least one assumption about human behavior. Someone's going to sign up, change a habit, share their data, read your dashboard, trust the answer that you give, or pay attention at the right moment in their day. Those assumptions are where projects traditionally break. AI build tools are useful precisely because they let you put those assumptions in front of someone cheaply before you spend real money or burn any personal credibility. So through the next chapters, every time we talk about a build decision, the question I want in the back of your head isn't, can we build it? Because you almost certainly can. It's, who is this for and what behaviors are we assuming? Cool. So try and get some audience participation. So before we dive in, it's not necessarily a show of hands, but just like answer this in your head, or if you want to throw it in the chat, that would be great. Is there something you've been trying to move along, maybe in your role, maybe entirely your own thing on a weekend? But most people in a room like this, they do have something that they've been working on. I'm just really interested into whether there is something that you've been slowly progressing, as I say, either at work or at home, that is in your head. And if there is, you don't necessarily need to put it in chat, but it'd be great to hear a yes if there is, or a no if there isn't. And maybe if there are things that come in, that'd be great.
Here's
Lucy.
is building an app. April Louise, yes. I mean, we're hoping people are coming on here because they have that thing bubbling in their head and they're going, how do I just get it out of my head and into a thing, which historically would have taken a lot of tech expertise, or you'd be trying to draw it up. Portfolio website. We're having a lot of years. We've got a lot of very enthusiastic yeses going. Research funding applications, interesting.
Good. Yeah.
Online exec CPD training course, building a platform for designing and fielding experiments, trauma-informed first aid project, a web app.
Wow.
Typical developing ideas for academic paper and funding bids, but we're not allowed to use AI for them. And I think with the apps and elements like that, I think it's putting your ideas into a different shape, isn't it? If you're building a website, if we take the AI out of this, if we're building a website, starting a podcast, it is just it's a platform for your ideas to be visualized differently, isn't it?
Yeah.
And AI is helping you with the visualization here. It's not actually it's not going to impact the quality of the research. It's just a way of helping your research reach people.
Yeah, so I mean, not a pitch because it's free, so I'm not getting anything from it. But on my website, the book that I co-authored, The Generative Organization, which talks about like how AI can be embedded in organizations. If I could boil that down to one thing, is AI is a great co-worker and co-pilot for cognitive work that you do, right? So I think if you were to kind of say the parallel of having someone who was smart and sat next to you, you could bounce ideas off of. That's how I envisage people using AI. I think often, and we'll talk about that a bit more as we get into the meat of this, often people tend to focus on, I just task it with doing a job and it comes back to me. And I think maybe that's not the right way to think about these things, but there's some really interesting ideas in chat. If we get a little time, maybe we can come back to some of those and discuss them a little bit more.
And there's an interesting comment around institutions are afraid that developing idea will be fed into AI. If we're building a website, we're probably not feeding the AI into it, or the research into it, or with the ideas rather. We are great. If we were building a website, it's what we want to ask our potential new community or the people who want to be involved in our research. So we're not putting our secret sauce out there into the website or the app. We're maybe saying we need to ask these questions of this demographic to help us evolve our project, our community, our research. So I think it's this balance, isn't it? You wouldn't build a website that outlined absolutely everything to do with your IP.
I mean, that said as well, I've worked with regulated industries with AI, building tools and solutions for them. The providers, like the frontier models, when they onboard a business, they do ring fence your space. So you can share internal documents. I'm not saying you should speak to your institute about how they've set things up. So this isn't advice, but I know that they can be configured in a way which ring fences your IP, so it isn't used as training data. It's not mined for things.
I'm not putting my IP into a website right now. I'm asking. I think this is it. This is what we're doing. So I want to build an app to see if my users engage in the way I think I'm going to do, and I'm going to be asking them some questions. I imagine if you ring fence it like that, if you're concerned, because I think that's what you'd want to do anyway. You don't go on somebody's website and get, the blueprints, do you?
No, that's not.
But yeah, there's some really good comments about the PhD has been a journey of imagination, as you mentioned. It's coming soon to that gap. So I'm here to get ideas for that bridge to implementation, ideas to create partnerships and transition our faculty work and focus to a much bigger platform and offer external stakeholders for opportunity exchange. The tools are so good because this was such a big project historically. I want to build an app, I want to build a website. It's 80, 100,000, and you get funding applications. And I know Innovate got very bored of everything. It was an app for that. Now we can get the V1. We're not going to say it's going to be the perfect end result, but you can at least get it from out of your head and, as you say, into your hands, which is so exciting.
Let's talk a little bit more about that. Let me move us on, right? So chapter 1. So I'm really passionate about this. We need to start with the audience, not the idea. So it's really the unglamorous bit. Before you pick up any tool, before you open ChatGPT, before you create wireframes or anything, before you even name the project, start with the audience. So not the idea. Most early stage work fails because it starts with, wouldn't it be cool if? Not who is this for and when do they get stuck? So today we're going to flip that. We want to talk about who is this for, when in their day, their work, their life, when do they actually run into this thing? What's their real problem? Not the one we've been telling ourselves, but the one they would describe in their own words. And if you get that right, the rest of these chapters and these processes will be really helpful. Otherwise, we may end up with something which is beautiful and shiny and well made, and nobody needs it. Trust me, I've been there. This is
many
learning.
people have been there. That's not just you,
Yeah.
especially, I'm afraid, Tim, the techies, because you love building stuff.
Yep. I've got an AI assistant which I've kind of built out over the last sort of year and a half, who works as my chief operating officer. And Nix helps me out, and often we'll go, "Yeah, you're doing that thing again where you're building something and you haven't asked this question." So I was saying before we started the call, Lucy, Nix told me, "Yeah, don't build that. That's dumb. Don't do that. That's silly." So yeah,
Love it.
cool. So again, in the chat, if you're sitting on an idea, I'd love you to shove it in the chat. But who is the prototype or the thing mainly for? I put 5 options on the screen. And it might not be one of those, might be something completely different for your space, but I've got kind of public users, visitors or communities, students or learners, researchers, colleagues or internal teams, funders, partners or decision makers, or you're just not sure. It'd be great if you pick one of those and drop it in the chat, or something else. The reason this matters is everything we do from here. We're going to talk about a thing called jobs to be done, creating hypotheses and
And we
prompts.
do need, a couple of people have said, oh, it's all of them. We do need to have a who is it mainly for? Because we go back to the marketing campaign that's trying to talk to everybody, talks to nobody. So we have to have which persona are we picking for this prototype?
Yep. It doesn't. Sorry, Lucy. Yeah.
No, because if you try and do it for everybody, everyone feels a bit excluded. You use the wrong language, because the students versus a researcher versus a funder versus public, they have different languages, different motivators, different challenges, different problems that we're maybe trying to solve with our project. So we do really need to choose who it's mainly for.
Yeah. I think what I would say is the reason we often build a prototype is to get signal, right? Is this the right thing? It's not the product, it's the experiment, it's the hypothesis we're testing. So with that in mind, it makes an awful lot of sense to niche down to a target audience to get that from. It doesn't mean that you can't then pivot and try the next audience and the next and the next and the next and grow that data set. But if you're, as you say, Lucy, if you're building for everyone, you're not really
You won't
building.
get good feedback, because we're making this prototype using the tools you're going to discuss. It's a bit of a quick and dirty prototype. We just want to get it in people's hands and see how they use it, test some hypotheses. This isn't the fully finished, polished, beautiful thing. We need it to get in front of the people who we think are going to be our mainly for, and see how they use it and go, oh, they're using it how we expected it. Or, oh gosh, this functionality, they're using this a lot more, and they're asking about this, or they're not engaging with it at all. The UX isn't working. This is a test. This is a research piece.
I would call it risk mitigation, right? It stops us from doing the wrong thing and investing money in the wrong things, and enables us to make smart decisions about where we invest our time, effort, money, and expertise.
And it's such an opportunity that we didn't have before because of technology.
Yeah, very much so. The red flag or the thing to worry about is if you put it in front of someone, they'll almost certainly think it's done, right? Well, that is the product. So the risk you'll get is they'll love it, and I've seen this, and they go, "Great, can you ship it tomorrow?" Not quite. We've got a little bit more work to do. So hopefully that's the response you get from the people you show it to. I absolutely love it. I will use it every single day. Can I have it now, please? That's a great problem to have, if I'm honest, because those signals can go to funding boards and things like that, as real, genuine feedback.
It's evidence that your users that it is actually doing what you proposed it would do. We want to see that as a funder. Yeah.
Cool. Excellent. I don't know if we got many responses in chat. I'm trying not to monitor the chat because I got a lot of things going.
We have a good blend of people who've got very specific. Some have got a combination, and that's why I brought up discussion of, if it's trying to be for everybody, let's pick it. And also because we have these tools, you could create different versions of it. But yes, just see this as user testing, see this as experimentation.
I absolutely would do it that way. I would absolutely break it down into different areas. And because the cost to build is so low, you can have parallel versions, right? You
Yeah.
can go, I've built this version for that market and audience, and in parallel, I've done it for these folks as well. And I can do a broad segment with niched down versions.
And this is brand new. We couldn't do this a year ago. The tech wasn't really there. So this is why we're bringing this conversation to this series. But it's also a different way of thinking. It's a different way of planning our project. It's a different way of funding our projects because we don't need that whopping great pot of cash to build an app based upon a hunch,
Yeah.
which is what we had to do before, or based upon some user testing that was sitting around doing user groups, asking them if they'd use the app and what they'd like it to do, maybe a bit of whiteboarding. This is amazing compared to where we were.
We will talk a little bit more about the human feedback as we go through this as well, though, Lucy, because I do think that's super
We do
important.
still need people. This is one of the key themes of all of these. AI
Yeah.
still needs people.
Yeah, 100%. Cool. Right. So, how do we get clear on the problem we're solving? So, one of the single most useful frames I know is a thing called jobs to be done. So, this is an idea that originally comes from a guy called Clayton Christensen. And it kind of goes with customers don't buy products, they hire them to do a job. There's a line here. I might have had some AI help in writing this, so please, I apologize. It sounds very AI. People didn't buy the iPod because they wanted an MP3 player. They hired it to put 1,000 songs in their pocket. Cringe, I know, but actually the sentiment's probably true. And Apple, if nothing else, they know how to market, right? And they very much sold it on that principle: 1,000 songs in your pocket, not it's an MP3 player. And you could look back in history and see, why did Microsoft's Zune not outperform the iPod? It was arguably a better product. So there are different jobs that your product is being employed to do. There's a functional job, the actual ask, the task that you want it to do. There's an emotional job, how they want to feel when they're doing it or afterwards. And then there's a social job, how they want to be seen by others. So your research participant, funder, collaborator, they're all hiring something to do a job on all three of those layers. But most of us only think about the first one, the functional one. And that's why pitches often feel flat. The job is never just functional. So this jobs to be done framework is a really good way of framing your idea.
And this is what you take people through when they come to you and say, let's build a thing.
Yeah, very much so. Cool. So next thing is really finding the moment the users get stuck and framing it so that the user recognizes it. So the practical move when you're trying to name the real problem is to find that moment where they get stuck, not a general area of difficulty, a specific moment, that exact kind of friction point where they sigh, close a tab, ask for help, or just give up and wander off the website or whatever. That moment is your problem. And that the bit that people skip is you have to frame it in a language they will recognize as a real problem worth solving, not your language. It's theirs. And that translation is the work as well. So the screenshots that I've got on there is a tool that I've built for basically for my own personal use. There's a process called value stream mapping. Some of you may have seen that before, or user journey mapping. It's a way of kind of looking at how workflows inside an organization or customers or users value is flown. So it might be like, go to the website, create a login, sign in, do the work I want to do, get the report. There's a user journey. So I've built a tool which basically helps me to do that. It's free to use, and it's vsm.agilist.co.uk. Just throwing it up there, just say, like, if you want to play around with that, feel free to do so. As I say, completely free to use until it costs me a fortune in tokens because everyone's using it, and then I might do something about that. But yeah, I will share some links and stuff, or the slides through Lucy.
And that relates to the choosing your user because they're all going to have different challenges.
So the way I've built this tool, it's a conversational AI chatbot. And you talk about like how does work flow, and it would ask you questions. It'll build the flow out. It's designed to then sort of say, well, maybe this workflow would benefit from elements of AI and automation here, here, and here. Here are your pain points. It's in beta. I use it for my own stuff, so it's not like a polished product. It's a good point, actually. We're talking about from idea to kind of an example. This serves my need, and that's as far as it will probably ever go. I'm not going to try and turn this into some, unicorn SaaS product. It's built for me, and it does what I need. Hopefully, it might add some value for you. But if you do find bugs, you can let me know. I'll happily fix them. Cool. So next, we're going to get into the bit which may feel a little overwhelming to some. It's our first prompt. So we're going to use this same skeleton every time today with 4 blocks: goal, context, source, and expectations. GCSE. It's easy to remember because basically we all sat them. I think Microsoft invented this format. I'll talk a bit more about the kind of prompting stuff as we go on, but fundamentally, I don't really care. There isn't like a magic phrase, an incantation for AI that you can use. This GCSE format works well because it's a mnemonic to try and remember what information do I need to give it. Fundamentally, I don't really use this so much anymore. It is a great training wheels to remember how to engage with AI and taught me how to kind of work with it. But I'd encourage you to start there. So the goal, it tells the model the role you want it to play and what we want from it. Here, that's act as a customer researcher doing jobs to be done and find the jobs my user hires my idea to do, not the features they ask for. And that distinction matters. If you just say, tell me what users want, you're just going to get a feature list asking for jobs, forces it to look a level deeper. Context is who is the user, what they currently use, the situation they're in. It's concrete, not abstract. Source is what you're giving it to work from. It could be the jobs to be done principles themselves, or any real interview notes, transcripts, quotes that you've got. Like even 2 or 3 sentences from a real person changes the output completely. And then expectations, that's the shape of the answer you want back. Functional, emotional, and social jobs. And for each of those, why it matters, where the current solution falls short, and where the opportunity is. So that's the structure. I mean, don't worry about copying that down. I will share, Lucy, I'm hoping there's a way that we can share with the attendees some prompts and things or this content after the fact.
This goes on to YouTube, so it can all be
Okay,
watched back. Yeah, all good.
I've got my contact details on the last slide as well. I'd urge people to connect with me, and I'm happy to share, stuff and just communicate and chat further if they've got questions. We'll come to that at the end, though. Excellent. So, chapter 2, turning the problem into a testable bet. So, hypothesis. So we've named a problem and whose it is. Now we need to turn that into something we can actually test, a bet. Specific enough we know afterwards whether we won it or lost it. And this is the chapter like most people skip. They go from this seems like an interesting problem straight to let me build a thing. And that thing they build has no real kind of test around it. So they never know did it work or whether they just enjoyed making it. I fall into that trap regularly. I enjoyed making it, but it's not really a product or something that solves a real problem. So we're not doing that today. And by the end of this chapter, I want to give you like a single sentence with 4 blanks that you can fill in that anyone could read and tell you whether your idea worked or didn't. And that sentence is the hypothesis. So this is a sentence I use. It comes from people in the lean startup business, and they probably borrowed it from someone else. I don't know, but it's knocked around for a while. We believe, and that we believe bit matters because we're being honest that this is a guess. We have a specific user in mind, and it's difficult to do a specific thing. We will build a simple tool that does that specific thing, and we will know it works if a specific measurable outcome happens. So those 4 blanks, if you look at them, the first 3 are probably easy to fill in. We believe the user, because we've discussed that, has this problem, or we've done that kind of value stream mapping. We've done some interviews, we've done some discussions. We will build this solution, and we'll know it works if this outcome. So the 4th one, we will know it works if, is where people often kind of freeze and find it difficult because it forces you to commit and say in advance what would change your mind. So here's the line I want you to write down. If you write down nothing else today, if you can't say how you'd know it worked, you're not ready to build it. Not allowed to open ChatGPT, not allowed to write a prompt. You really need to kind of know how am I going to validate this? Otherwise, you're just going to throw your time into something which is a hobby. It's great to build stuff. I do it all the time, but it's not going to solve an outcome. Hopefully that
How
wasn't
do
too
you help
preachy.
somebody work through that? Is it, what does good look like? Does it mean that they're using the app and they're finding it really easy to talk through um, their challenge, or to how do you help people work out that outcome, make it something tangible, not too huge, not too vague?
I got a prompt for that, Lucy, but
Weird. I should
you
have
know,
known, shouldn't
funny
I?
that. But yeah, I mean, the AI is not the be all and end all of these things. But I think if we use it as a partner in knowledge
So
work,
could
yeah,
you talk it through with your co-pilot and say, look, I'm thinking about building an app for my users with this challenge. I need a simple tool that helps them do this. But what would the outcome be? Would you talk it through?
yeah, absolutely. So I've actually got a section where we talk a little bit more in depth about that. But if I go on to like the next slide, I've got some worked examples, right?
Cool.
So maybe this will help a little bit. So I don't know how relevant these are, but it's the same template across three different kind of spaces. So public engagement, imagine you're at a museum, visitors find it hard to connect historical material to their own lives in a short visit. You build a simple interactive guide with personalized trails. You'll know it works if 7 out of 10 test users complete a trail and can name one thing they discovered. So I think like that's really kind of measurable. And no surprises here, I kind of built these with AI prompting. So it's quite important to me that, as I say, you work together with the AI to to bounce your ideas about. It's great at doing kind of bits of research, but it's not inventive. That's your job,
There's
right?
a couple of people in chat saying this also works with any academic problem in principle, using this question for a paper or funding bid. And as Judith says, it seems to me that these are questions that should be asked before starting a PhD. It's questions you probably should ask before you start any project, really. So hopefully you've started them prior to thinking I need an app for this. But it's just if you're struggling to maybe articulate it, that these models help, don't they?
Yeah, I think often in my experience, I might start coming at this and going, I need to build an app for this. I've already started with my answer. We all know that's a really bad idea,
Or
right?
someone's told me there was a period where an app was the answer to everything.
Yep.
Someone's told me I should have an app for this, but actually the app might just be to help you with gaining more
I
intelligence and more research for your project. It may not be the end product. You could be using these tools to just get your idea, your ask in front of more people.
I turn down people asking me to build them apps quite often. Someone recently asked me to build an app which did their um, consolidation of invoices for them. I was like, well, number one, there are 1,000 of
It
those.
already exists, very much already exists,
Just go
yes.
buy one, it's cheap. Or number two, just you need process. You just need to not go, I'm going to spend 6 weeks collecting a shoebox full of receipts and then cry and panic and hide under my desk when I need to reconcile all of those. Build some process.
And you also need to think, does it need to be an app or could it be a Google form?
Yeah, yeah,
Don't
absolutely.
overcomplicate it because Google form might be the thing to do. Oh, a form could be the thing that you need for V1 and then can feed into an app. So at no point are we saying through all of this is that everyone needs an app. I think that's a very good point.
Yeah, cool. Right, so I've got another question for the audience. Hopefully they can drop something in chat. Same as before. The ideas that you kind of you shouted out or had in mind, roughly speaking, can you answer? Could you answer that sentence right now? I'll know it works if. And I'm really interested to see if it's like a yes, a roughly, or no.
With a bit more background, if it's a yes, it's like, yeah, I've got it really focused.
Yeah. So, like in my experience, about a quarter of the audience would generally answer yes, and then like another quarter would be, well, roughly, I've got a fair
We've
idea
got
about
we've got
how I
some
build it.
roughly, we've got some no's,
Yeah.
as we
Uh,
would expect. So this isn't a test. It's just really good to know where you are right now, and because then we need to make sure that we can work to that before we start having a conversation.
well, I do love to come out of these sessions with people thinking, I know what I kind of need to do next, right? And if you're a no,
Giving them homeworks makes me happy. I reckon we've got about 50-50 in here of yeses and nos and a couple of
uh,
roughlies,
yeah, I mean that's
which is
fine,
what
right?
you'd expect, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
If you're,
that's why we're here,
yeah,
for you to help us with this, Tim.
I think often though, interestingly, when I work with customers, clients, and it's a no, some of those are the most powerful ideas. It's the people that become so passionate about the problem space, they've not necessarily thought about how they'll validate it afterwards. Their focus is on solving the problem and not the validation of whether it solved the problem. They're often really, really good ideas. So if you're a no, it doesn't mean you've got a terrible idea, but maybe it tells you what you might need to think about next. Hopefully that's a gift you've got for you. And then, as I said, a prompt, right? So this prompt, same GCSE skeleton goal to turn your rough idea into a hypothesis. Sorry, I'm breaking these teeth in for the dog. Is it actually a hypothesis and actually falsifiable? So can it be proved wrong? If it isn't a hypothesis, then it's just a vibe, right? And I really would urge you to kind of build that picture out. If you were going to someone for funding, I know from experience, you need to be able to answer this question. How are you going to validate that it did do the thing, right, to get funding? So it's really good thing. So context, goal, is it falsifiable? Context, is your idea and who it's for, whatever you scribbled down from the last exercise. Source, the 4-part template you saw. Expectations is where that kind of work happens. So write my rough idea as a 4-part statement. Tell me whether the outcome is genuinely measurable, and if not, sharpen it. And 3, and most importantly, suggest a cheaper test. If we're going to use the AI, get it to validate a test. Coming back to what Lucy was saying, maybe you don't need an app. Maybe it's a Google Sheet. Maybe it's go and speak to someone down the hallway, right? So we can make the test cheaper, unless it's I want to build something because it's fun and I want to learn from doing it. There is nothing wrong with that, but there maybe are cheaper ways of doing it. Cool. So I'm going to move on to chapter 3, briefing the AI like it's a professional. Most people, when they sit down with a tool like ChatGPT, type a vague question into the chat box and they get really cross when it gives them a vague response. They treat it like a Google search, and it really isn't that. Hopefully through sharing those prompts, the GCSE format, you'll understand that I don't tend to work with an AI in that way. There are a bunch of different ways of doing that. Something that I've been playing with recently, I've got not a hypothesis, it's a vibe because I don't know how I test it. But I've been working with AI to kind of sneak up on a question. So if you're working in a really challenging space, I would ask it what it knows about the domain first. What do you know about project management? Project management is an X, Y, and Z. What do you know about tools that help us to visualize the work? X, Y, and Z. Okay, help me to build a value stream map. It seems to guide those AI models into a space where they're better framed to answer a question. So the discipline of the next chapter is like, how are we going to brief the AI? It's not typing do a thing and hoping. It's telling it what the thing is, who it's for, what to look at, what shape you want the answer in. So that kind of GCSE framework. Cool. A wall of text. My apologies. Nobody's listening to me anymore. You're all reading because I know that. Basically, this is a demo, 2 prompts. One is a really generic build me an app. And you're just going to get generic mush back. It doesn't know whether it's building a survey, a timeline, a portal, a chatbot. You're going to waste an hour just clarifying what you meant. And on the right, same model, same time, brief properly. Goal, create a clickable prototype for a public engagement tool. I'm an academic research team. This is early funding discussion. The audience is non-specialist visitors. My project summary, the intended audience, the 3 assumptions I want to test, and the expectations. I want a 1-page prototype brief, 3 named user flows, and the smallest clickable version worth testing. So what comes back? A concrete prototype brief, user flows, and a minimum viable version that you could build by Friday. Same model, same thing. The only thing that changed is the brief. So the quality of the prompt is the quality of your output. And again, we've used that goal, context, source, expectation. We've seen it a couple of times today. So a question to the room, which output would you trust enough to act on? All right. So I want to know if it's like that vague one, the GCSE one where you've put some effort in, or is it neither yet? I want to kind of gauge the level of trust. So if you say neither, that's fine as well. It usually means that you want to see the model showing its workings, citing its sources and stuff like that. And there are ways that you can get that. I'm just really interested to get a temperature check on the audience. Is like, I wouldn't trust any of it, or actually, if I got a really specific beatable list with cited sources, I'd probably lean on that.
I think as I probably said, the GCSE one makes sense how you've explained it. And neither, I think you're right. You've got some. I think it's now I want to see it in action. I want to go away and do it, because now you give it's back to that, isn't it? It's like, oh, okay, this is a really good way of approaching it. My gut feeling is I now want to go and see what it does for my project.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's always your mileage may vary point, right? And if you offload cognition to the AI, you're the passenger, right? And I think master servant's not the right language, but I don't know what it is, right? But you're beholden to the AI rather than the other way around. We want this to be a tool that we use rather than us being the tool it uses. So it's important that when you are working with these tools like AI, that you're the arbiter of what good quality and taste looks like.
You're still in control of it.
Yeah, you're
We've
the
had a
expert.
question about what does action mean. Action means taking this output and then going putting it into one of the tools. So I think you're going to talk about what action looks like, aren't you? Really, is the next step.
Yeah, by acting on, I mean like you trust it enough to move forward with the next stage in process,
Yeah,
right?
that's
I've got, yeah, I can read this, I understand it. I could go and look at its suggestions, and they're sane and make sense. I think with that GCSE and like a bit of rigor around prompting, I think we're able to make a distinction on, yeah, that's good enough, or I need to tweak it some more to move
and good
forward.
enough for V1. Let's go back to it. We're not building a beautiful, polished. I'm not building Spotify, which is the first app that came to my head on this webinar.
Yeah.
We're building what Spotify probably V1 looked like, which is probably quite clunky. It probably
Uh,
wasn't great.
Yes, I know some guys who worked in Spotify in the very early days, and they said it was an energetic and chaotic environment, I think is the description
So
I
this is
got.
a V1 we're building here, and I think
Yeah.
that's also to remember.
Well,
Not
the good point is that Spotify is actually a really good example. Can you imagine when they were building it and they said, we we're not going to sell music. What we're going to do is give people access to music to stream. Now, try take that to a someone who's going to fund you to build this platform.
they did get sued a bit at the beginning as well, didn't they? But yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
that's
rabbit
true.
hole. But it's it's one of those. It's what it again. It was because we wanted to all listen to our music in one place.
Yeah.
There were loads of Spotify for options out there to begin with, and there still are.
I never use Napster. I don't know what you're talking about. Cool. So really, I don't want to kind of bang on about it too much, but that was the GCSE prompting framework. It's a really useful tool. It's not the only way of doing this, but it is a great kind of way of structuring how you engage with AI to get good responses. And I'll share those prompts, or you can pull those prompts out of here in the video. I might even come in once it's on YouTube and post them in comments. There you go. We get some traction. Cool. So, chapter 4, get to something clickable fast. So this is like the centerpiece. This is why we're here. I've kind of taken you on a journey which says like, actually, don't build things unless you know what you're building and why you're building it and who you're building it for. That's the trap. Don't jump straight to chapter 4. But chapter 4 is like, now that we've named the problem, we've written a hypothesis, we've learned how to brief the AI. Now, how do we actually make something clickable, something you can put in front of another human being? And that's the goal of this chapter. So before we go further, I just want to say that the goal here is speed, not polish, not finished, fast and rough and good enough to provoke a reaction and get feedback, not something that you can like put out into the world and monetize. So again, another wall of text. I'm going to walk us through this a little bit. What I've tried to do is say, you don't need 100 tools to do this. There is a bit of a kind of a method rather than a right tool that does everything. So what I've tried to do is map how I do things. I've built probably north of 50 prototypes for myself and for others by now. And it tends to fall into this kind of general pattern. So this is what's worked for me. Again, you might need something different, right? And I would say you can use a bunch of different tools, and we can talk a little bit more about what tools are available. In fact, we will do on the next slide, so I won't go too much into that, but this is how I tend to work. So think and red teaming the idea. We've talked a little bit about like the hypothesis, who my user is. I tend to use Claude and a tool that I built called Delphi. So Delphi Agent is an AI augmented orchestration tool. I give it a difficult problem and it generates AI personas which argue the case based on their state. And we've got a kind of contrarian in there which argues against each argument, and they do research. It's quite a heavyweight tool. Cost me about £3 a time to run it, and it takes about 45 minutes to run. But it's a really useful way of diving much more deeply into this. So an example might be it would generate a persona which is a CFO. It would generate a policy expert. It would generate an artist, and they would argue from their standpoint to try and form consensus. Not because it's the right answer, but because it's a cheap way of me kind of getting a validated or semi-validated starting point. So it kind of red teams the idea, and it forms an input document. Again, I'm giving that away for free, although that is a code tool. It's not a website you can just go visit, but there's a GitHub link there where you can access the code and build it yourself if you're a bit of a builder. If you're not and you know someone, feel free to kind of clone that site, and you can duplicate that tool. So having kind of validated the idea to the level I can, I want to map the journey and write a brief. So I use my value stream mapping tool. Again, you can just use any kind of large language model tool to help you to do that. I've just, because I do it so often, I've built a tool that helps me. I would then build a product requirements document. I'd very much like use something like Claude or ChatGPT. It knows exactly what a PRD is. We'll talk a little bit more about that in depth, what that looks like in a second. But build a PRD, product requirements document, that describes what the product is and does based on all of the content that we feed in. Then I would take it into a tool, which is a build tool. I tend to use Lovable because I think it's the most accessible, but there are very many more. Again, we'll talk about that in a second. And then test it. I use Claude with browser control if it's a website or an app, and tell it to navigate and click the buttons. Test it as if we were a user. That gives me enough of a warm, fuzzy feeling to give it to a human being, right? To get feedback from humans. So it's not that I'm relying on AI to do all of that and go, yes, I've built a wonderful app because an AI loves it. It gives me enough that I don't look like a complete fool when I put it in front of a human being whose opinion actually matters. Because I don't care if I upset the AI's sensibilities. It is not consequential, but putting it in front of people whose opinion of me matters is important. And I'll go into a little bit more depth on that if people are interested as well on another slide, but because it kind of there are some nuance below there. So as I said, you don't need 100 tools. You need some sort of method. There are two kind of flavors of tools. No code prototyping tools. So Lovable, Bolt, V0, Framer, Manus. I mean, the list is almost endless. And then there are code first building tools like Cursor, Replit, Copilot, Claude Code. There's a massive amount of those. I would say that over the last 6 months, I've seen the Venn diagram of those two overlap more and more and more. The tools which used to be describe first through chat and code second have started to enable the code to be exported out to be used in code tools, and the code first tools have started to put more and more chat first interfaces on top of them. I think over the next 6 months we're going to start to see that just really collapsing down into their build tools, and you'll pick the channel which works best for you. Writing as if it was a coder versus writing if you were maybe more of a layperson.
And they are for apps. Obviously, we're doing websites next week, so this is. But you can build multiple things in these tools, can't you?
Very much so. I mean, my
Yeah.
my website's built in one of these because I don't know how to do that. So, admittedly, that was a long labour of weeks and weeks of effort to get to something I was happy with. But yeah, it can build pretty much anything that you want to. Like even if you wanted to build out a dashboard or a report,
Mm.
these tools are really good for that as well. So it's not just apps and prototypes. You can use these for generating reports and stuff. Again, it depends on what your problem space is. So people assume you type a few sentences in though, and one of these build tools, and then you go away, get a coffee, go and get lunch, come back, and you've got polished site, polished app, polished product. That isn't what happens. To build something useful, you need to give it that bigger brief. So when I talked about PRD, a product requirements document, generally speaking, the format I would use is like the purpose, the audience, assumptions that we're going to test, core user journey, content and data needed, source signals, constraints. These tools have got no problem with reading, 8,000 words and synthesizing that so they understand your context. So none of that's exotic. It's the sort of thing you would do if you were going to employ a freelance developer. It's just that your freelance developer is now an AI tool. So again, um, you can use that GCSE prompt. You can use any of the large language models that you've got access to, and say, build me out a product requirements document based on all of this thing. So these are kind of layered tiers. We started out with, I think I've got an idea. I think it serves this person. You see how we're building up a layered approach to getting more and more context to get to this point where we say, here's a bunch of context and data, and here's the outcome we're looking for.
PRD, remind everybody what that stands for.
Product requirements document.
Acronyms.
Yeah, product requirements document.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I would say it's never, never one shot. They'll sell you on, hey, just type in your prompt and give it the data and come back and it's done. It doesn't work that way. So what I tend to do is help work with, in my case, Lovable in a lot of instances, but I've used pretty much all of the tools on the market. Lovable has got a plan mode where it's conversational. Give it the documentation, it generates a plan. You refine that through conversation, and then you say, yes, that's exactly what I want. Now we can build it. Watch it build and stay in the loop. It's not something you just kind of wander off and come back an hour later. You want to be there and kind of observe what it's doing, because it will ask for decisions during the build process. So if you did walk away, you could come back an hour later and it's sat there waiting for you to say, do you want a red one or a blue one? So you want to be supporting it through that, making sure it's not making dumb assumptions as well, which it will still do. Then in the app, in the builder, test it, right? So often they will give you a kind of a mock-up local version where you can access it and validate everything works. Click everything, be a pest, type things in which you wouldn't expect to see typed in. If it says enter 10 characters, enter 12 and see what happens. Try to break it, because when you break it there, it's much, much cheaper. Then refine and test the next bit. So it's not the first version that you're probably going to show anyone. It's probably not the third one either. So the skill isn't writing that perfect prompt at the start. It accelerates things, but it's feeding back in what to fix and going around that loop. So the attitude that makes it work is break things, click the things you're not supposed to click, type things it didn't expect, find those cracks early when they're cheap to fix, and then tell those build systems to fix them. Cool. The next thing you might want to try, and this is one of those Marmite things, synthetic users. Right, this often kind of gets people into two camps. I would caveat that with synthetic users help you find better questions. They do not replace user feedback. I work with a very large sports brand, and they wanted to build out synthetic user library that they could validate product ideas through. And I said, it's great. It's a wonderful idea. We can definitely build it. It will not validate your product ideas, because there isn't an AI in the world that's doing a 5K run. there's not an AI that's out there playing basketball every day. There's not an AI that cares about, table tennis bats.
People are using AI to build boards, virtual boards, aren't they? And virtual user groups. And there's a company in Bath who are very passionately but I think they're fascinated by the concept, but again, it doesn't replace real people. But you can build these personas. It can be useful.
I mean, they definitely surface better questions. That's the thing I think which I would want people to take away from that. So I've built tools like that. Delphi tool effectively is this, right? It's synthetic personas. It helps me to form better questions and better understandings of what I would ask real people. But yeah, I'd urge you to give it a try. It can be really useful to get a different perspective, not a real one, but a different one, before it's expensive to do that. Cool. So this is a prompt which you can use. Again, I'll share these, or you can take them from the screenshots. That's a good point, actually. Most of the AI tools let you put screenshots in, so you could just screenshot this prompt and say, "Here's our prompt." If you really want it to be super lazy, but the goal here: generate a small panel of synthetic users, 5 or 6 is plenty, to pressure test my concept and tell me what would stop them using it, not what they'd love, what would stop them. That's the useful question. Context, my idea, who I think the real audience is, source, the jobs you found in jobs to be done, plus your real audience mix, age range,
And
geography.
we've played with language here. So we're saying concept, it could be your project, it could be your research. You can, that word's very interchangeable. It's very difficult because you're working on really different things.
Yeah.
So change the language in relation to what you're working on, to make it, because otherwise it's really tough, isn't it, Tim, when we put these bits together, is we're never going to, the language may not resonate with everybody, but the concept's still fundamentally the same structure.
Yeah, I think hopefully people can kind of see through that, because obviously the work that I do is not the same as the work that the academics on this call do. I've tried to, where possible, kind of move it as close as I can to that language. If I'm really transparent and honest, I didn't have that academic career. I've not gone that journey. It's very much get out and well, yeah, a terrible backstory, but we don't need to do that. This isn't. Yeah, it's not Britain's Got Talent. I don't need to give you my sob story, but yeah, I didn't get the opportunity to go to university. But so I'm trying to do this as best I can. But yeah, it is very much like maybe read between the lines. But if you've got questions, feel free to throw them in the chat or connect with me afterwards. I'm more than happy to have a conversation about your context in particular.
And in response to Cherry's comment, we're not looking to outsource our project to AI. We're not looking for it to run our project or get our users or take control of our research. We're using them as a tool to maybe start different conversations, approach technology in different ways, enhance. It's a tool in our toolkit, which is what the series has been called all the way through. These are tools, and we cherry pick their uses in a way that feels authentic to ourselves and our projects and our ethics. So how you use them, where they all fit in, and how much they become something that you use is absolutely your call. We're actually recommending in all these conversations is we cherry pick the bits that are useful to move us forward.
100%, 100%. I think, people say, oh, AI is going to replace human beings, or it's not going to replace. The bottom line is, I think if you are the sort of person who outsources all of your work to an AI, then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You are the person who's going to get
tool there
replaced.
that we should all explore, which is why we're on these calls. It's
Absolutely.
A tool that everybody here today is intrigued by and wants to know how they can thread it into their daily life in a valuable, authentic way.
100%. And I'm definitely not advocating that this is the process that everybody should follow. It's like if there's one thing in here which is like, actually, that might help me.
Yeah,
I'll do
then I
that.
feel we've done our job.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think my key takeaway for this is go and have a play and see what you can build, because we did a lovable workshop, didn't we?
Yeah.
Which is called a play lab, where we just basically had a group of people online because it's easier to do these things online, and we all just basically just built things. So I built a really great app for my festival in about 3 minutes once Lovable had worked it through, and it was a really great fun way for me to see my festival and engagement with my audience differently. It gave me some ideas.
Yeah, I think so. I was building a tool this week. Someone was saying to me about I'm really worried that if I offload my cognition to AI, I stop thinking, rationally. And I see my mum falling for all of these kind of spam AI generated posts and stuff. So I built a little game which kind of gave you examples of you know rubbish AI and where it was biased, and you have to kind of fill in a little quiz. And you can build something like that, which is a little bit of fun. Again, it's not a product, it's not something I'm ever going to sell, but it's a bit of fun that maybe helps one or two people, and it's like 10 minutes, and it's the cost of any hobby that someone like my age might have. I mean, I've got friends who spent like 6 grand on carbon fiber bicycles. I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. Cool. So bring us to the last thing. Ship it to learn, not to finish. This is like really the last section. So what I want to say is like shipping isn't the end. Shipping is the experiment. We talked about that hypothesis. When I say ship, I'm talking about shipping it to validate the hypothesis, to get feedback. Having got feedback from people, I then try to take it through 5 lenses of kind of testing on that feedback. Is this desirable? Do they actually want to use it? Not, people are really nice. They'll say, Lucy, it's a great app. I love it. Are they actually going to use it? Right? Are they really going to use it? Is it viable? Can it be built and run sustainably at any reasonable scale? Because a lot of these things, they don't really scale. So you need to ask that question. Feasible? Have you got the resources, skills, and the time to actually do it? I think most of our audience here, probably they'd be looking at something which was part of their day job, right? So maybe the time is built into the day job. For someone like me who's kind of entrepreneurial and spinning up loads of different things, that's where I fall down. Have you got the time to actually do this? No, Tim, you haven't. So yeah, that's often a stop signal. Strategic alignment, does it fit your mission, not someone else's roadmap? Is it aligned with what you want to do? Competitive advantage, that might not be as relevant for you folks, but it's definitely a question that's worth asking. Does it create defensible value? If it's a product or an app or something that you're trying to build because it's got commercial benefit, or value, let's not say commercial benefit, value. If you're building something which provides value, is it defensible, or is someone
It
going
could be collaborative advantage. I think we could put in there as well. Is actually, if you built this tool, it could help you work with more people.
Yeah, absolutely. Good call. So they're useful lenses. You might have different lenses, but fundamentally, we have got this in front of people to get feedback, but we want to use that feedback to make better decisions. And it gives us like opportunities like, do we pivot, do we continue, or do we stop? And stop is often the hardest thing. So I would say like pivot, persist, or quit. If you get no signal, if it's just silence, that's telling you something as well, right? So running 3 to 5 feedback cycles on the thing that you've done, ship, watch, learn, adjust, ship again, but you're listening for real signal. And that's super important. And there are many things which I have quit or stopped, and that is not failure. That is rapidly learning so that I don't invest time, effort, credibility on something which is not actually valuable, is not beneficial. Or I delude myself and say, yeah, but I'm enjoying building it. And the value is in the learning to build something, and saying how smart I am building this new, wonderful, fancy thing. But yeah, it's useful. Ask yourself those questions. I built a thing. So again, we talked a little bit about like ethical use right at the top. I feel like I trying to build things which actually provide benefit and value. I've got an elderly parent, 2 elderly parents. I built an AI which phoned them and alleviated loneliness, just because they wanted to spend 3 hours chatting on the phone, and they didn't have that. So I built an AI for mum and dad that did that. On the face of it, that sounds terrible, but actually, if you were to experience it, you'd see that it's actually quite pragmatic as an approach. But I built it using those prototyping tools, using the journey that I've just kind of walked through there with you, and realized actually this is now a product. And that's when that earned the switch into real code, real investment, real time, partners, and the work that came with doing that. So the prototype, it did its job and gave me feedback, and it earned that move to become a product. But many things just haven't. right? That's why the value stream mapping tool is something it's like just sat on my website. It hasn't earned the move to become a product. Hopefully that makes some sense. So as I said, there's a few of these prompts. This is a prompt. I'm not going to read it out verbatim, but this is a prompt which gives you that 5-question test. Again, you might want to change the questions that it asks you, but fundamentally is asking, should I pivot, continue, or quit?
And a question I'd missed actually in the chat was about all the tools you've mentioned there have a free level. So that was quite a things like Lovable. They all have a level where we can actually play around in free. That was quite important. As with most things, they do have different tiers, but you should be able to do a V1 practice scoping for free.
In the play lab that we did, we had enough credits to build like a working prototype for 2 or 3 people in that first session. So yeah, absolutely, the free tiers do give you enough to get hooked. It's like
Or to continue to evolve the conversation, to build the visual concept, to get something in somebody's hands. That's what we can do. And I say the base level, it's a minimum viable version. It's not beautiful, but you can do a lot within that level just to see what it could do and where it could get you.
Yeah, so the skeptic in me sees it like the punk that was stood at the school gates when I was a kid, that I was warned about. Oh, the first one's free, just try it. Yeah, they're trying to lure
That's
you
probably not the rabbit hole we want to go down right now. I think for the purpose of this, we can explore the technology to see if it could be valuable to our projects without investing in it, and then maybe making the proposal that it could then be something that should be funded. But I think it would also be looking at which tool you then use. Go back to your stuff there.
Yeah, it's a good point though. It can the prototype in itself can be proof of investment in the tools to build the prototype. So yeah, I hadn't really seen that kind of meta level of thinking. So again, that's the 5 steps at a high level that we went through. We've been through problem, so defining the problem. We've talked about how we create a hypothesis. We've talked about planning. We've talked about the building, and we talked about shipping. This is the kind of high level, and the 5 prompts that underpin that I will share with you. If I go to like a deeper level, this is the kind of full rig in my build, often how I'll go through stuff, discuss and research, bounce ideas around, red teaming and analysis, building a journey map of the work, writing out the PRD, working in Lovable in plan mode, building the context, iterating and building, deploying that, using AI agents to test it in its live version, feeding fixes back, and then sharing it with real human beings to validate it. As we've said all along, it's the same method. We can swap out any tool as they go, because the tools were changing on such a regular basis. There isn't really one thing here. They're constantly being in flux. But yeah, the process or the method that I've shared has worked well for me. So I want to come back into chat, and so kind of go, what will you do next? So before we close, if you look at like the ideas here, we talked about your kind of ideas, and there are a few there. Do you need to do a better job of clarifying your audience, testing the assumption, building that kind of first clickable version, putting it in
I might make you do a bit of a live show of some of the stuff you've built as well, because there's some nice comments about what you built for your parents. So we'll get everybody else. Everyone's saying what they're going to do, but obviously you have a little time to actually look at some of the things that you've built and look at the functionality on some of the very baselines. Throwing you into a live thing now, I do apologise.
That's
but
okay.
I would love to see what some of these can look like. So some of maybe your less polished versions, but yeah.
I'll stop the share because you put me on the spot. So I need to go and open a browser and open that.
Do let people answer what they're going to do next though. So do go back to your share while you find a thing to play on.
Let me do that then. Oh no, that's the wrong button. Oh, Lucy, you've derailed me now. And can I have Zoom back, please? I know you're there somewhere. There we are. Are you seeing my screen again?
We are indeed.
Excellent. So whilst people are answering that question,
Yeah, go back to where we're going to start now. Oh, actually, where you feel you are in this, if we've got the audience and we've got the assumption, we're going to go and have a play on the tool. Thanks, Piers. Yes, we can share the slides. I'll probably do it through Frank. It's probably the easiest way of doing it. I think he's off this week, but I can share the slides back with you to give you something to work through with your homework.
yep. So are we seeing much in the chat? Is there like a forming kind of consensus? Do people need to clarify the audience?
I think there's a lot of thinking going on, if I'm very honest. I think as with all of these, there's quite a lot of information to take in there, all the workflow and the GCSE and the process. I think, yeah, Piers loves homework. Yay! Just not marking it. That was fair. I mean, to say we a kind of our idea with all of these toolkits is to help you go forth and be inspired. And it does feel less daunting because this is an area where historically it's always been like websites used to be. That's someone who's a coder's job. That's not something I can do. That's way beyond my capability. And actually now we can go and have a play and have a bit of fun with it.
I think if you can get past the barrier of, oh, I don't really know what I'm doing and I'm a bit nervous about it. Once you get past that barrier, it's actually really quite fun.
You can't break it. It can make,
Yeah.
I mean, that was the whole thing when we had that a play lab with Lovable. It's like, oh, okay. Oh, I don't want it that shape. I started immediately going, well, I want those boxes to be circles. And you start already acting as a user and you're forgetting how clever the bit behind the scene is.
Yeah, it's fun. It is. I mean, as much as it's my
what
day
was your
job,
next bit then? We've got this bit. What's the homework? And then let's have a look at a couple of the tools. So let's go and build something.
Yep. Right. So the call to action is to go and build something. But what I'd love people to do is to connect with me. I've got that QR code.
You want to see what everybody builds, don't you?
I do. I want to see it. No, I guess what I would say is, like, if you are feeling a bit daunted, there's a lot of stuff here.
Go and have a play.
I go have a play, but also connect with me. I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you.
Olga's saying she's going to build a clickable version next and tested assumption with a real small focus group and manually build the mock-up. Olga's off.
Excellent.
Excellent. Thanks, Olga.
I'm excited to hear what Olga builds.
They're really great tools to start different conversations from a research perspective for me. So go on, let's show us some of the stuff you've built. Let's see what it could look like.
Okay, I will.
Now you've spent many hours, days, years down this rabbit hole, so we're not all going to be as good as your V1s.
Cool. As I say, Lucy, you popped me on the spot, so I need to open a browser because I'd closed everything down, so I didn't have any distractions. So please do bear with me as I.
When you've watched these tools evolve and its capability from when you first started.
Me?
Yes.
Yeah.
I shouldn't ask you questions when you're trying to open browser. Sorry, making you do two things at once.
I can't even do one thing at once. I mean, I've set expectations.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Right. Okay, I'm kind of there. Bear with me 1 second. Let me reshare. So, for those of you who are looking at the screen now, what you're seeing is Lovable's interface. And this is the silly little app that I said to you about. Like this is the Think Twice app. Don't outsource your thinking to AI. Silly little quiz, as an example. And it was an hour of playing around side of desk type stuff. So gives you an example of how Lovable works, and you'll see.
It looks very familiar. This looks like they all seem to have very similar back ends, don't they?
Yep. Yeah. And then you'll see here, like,
you've tweaked it a bit.
Yeah, it's like, it was running a 35
and you were nice to it.
time.
I love that. Yeah. Please remove
timer, please. Oh yeah, well, if it does become sentient and comes after me, then at least I said please. So
go up to the top. How did you start this? So you've got
probably not the best example of how I started this, to be honest with you. I kind of, knowing Lovable the way I do, and I was in plan mode, I knew it would ask me a bunch of questions. So I said, here's the pitch. The use of AI in a non-mindful way risks eroding critical thinking and natural skepticism, and research and learn. We're building a game that builds critical thinking skills. That's all I gave it. And then it came back after a good sort of 5 or 10 minute think with a whole kind of, how do you want to do this? So it asked me a bunch of questions. I don't think you can actually see the questions, but it did a whole bunch of stuff asking, like, questions about what did I think about this? What did I do about that? And we collaborated.
Once you answered here, the gameplay, the primary player. So it's
Yeah.
asking about your persona. Okay, cool.
Yep. And then, as we say, I moved down through that, and it was like, okay, that fixed all security issues. That's not me just saying that. There are in Lovable, there is an option to have it test whether it's got any security issues, and then it will kind of analyze everything that's in there and go, oh yeah, okay, this is a problem, that's a problem, and fix those. And it found like issues where, because it's using AI in the background to run the game, someone could come in and just spam it and use all my tokens. So, oh, we need to fix that. We need to fix this. And then I wanted to add 2 new mini games. I wanted a fact-checking game, true, false, and unverifiable bias spotter. So it could name cognitive biases. So it would post like, say like, here's some examples of posts that you might see on Instagram or X, Twitter, or whatever. What biases can you spot in there? It's not polished. It's just something I'm playing with in the background. It's not the best example, if I'm honest.
What does it
Uh,
look like then? So you're putting all the, oh, hello.
so
So is it an app? It is an app, isn't it? So you
it's a
have
web.
this
It's a website.
website, yeah.
Um, but if I go to my website, you can see like some of the tools that I built. So this is a cost calculator. So a lot of people came to me and said, should I use my own self-hosted local AI, or should I be using Anthropic or ChatGPT? I don't know about the costs. So this is a cost calculator that gets up to date kind of pricing, although it's not updated to the very, very latest
And
Anthropic.
what did you build this in?
So I built this in Lovable as well.
Okay.
So this was built in Lovable, and what it allows you to do is say, like, my business is a moderate user of AI, so we use like about daily business workflows. We use Anthropic, we use this model, and we think about 20% of our stuff is like repeated work, so it gets cached and is charged at a lower rate. And what we're thinking about is like, should we buy a Mac Studio M4 Ultra and use that instead? And what it will do is say it's actually 40% cheaper to use Anthropic's Claude Opus than it would be to buy and run a local model.
This is why you end up going right down rabbit holes, isn't it? Because the capability of all of these solutions is really as limited as your imagination as to what you'd like it to do for you.
Yeah.
So that's why you've really got to narrow it down.
Another example. So I was working with someone who they produce podcasts. That's their job, and he was saying to me that tried to use augmented reality glasses to read his script. And I thought there's got to be a better way of helping people who are doing these kind of live interview type things to remember their questions and to generate the questions. So this tool basically, you tell it the agenda of your podcast or your conversation. Imagine if you were doing interviews, for example. I'm thinking about our audience here right now. If you're doing some sort of qualitative interview, you can ask it to help you to build out your question sets that you might ask. And then it listens live and says, okay, you've asked question 3. That answers question 3. You've answered question 1 with that question. We've got 10 minutes left of the interview time. You might want to ask question 2. That's missing. And at the end, it gives you a breakdown of each of the questions, how the guest answered those questions, and then helps you to create like social media content so you can share your podcast on Instagram and Twitter and stuff like that. And if you really want to, it's a bit of a gimmick, you can have an AI run the interview for you. Please don't do that. I just made it because it was fun and I could. But yeah, it's got like an AI voice that could actually do the interviewing for you. If you're at the point where you're running a podcast and getting an AI who's the interviewer, you're not running a podcast anymore. But hey, I put it in there because someone said, could it do it? I don't know. Could it? Yeah, it can, but you shouldn't. And then if I come to Daily Friend, so Daily Friend is my startup for care. I don't know if that was one of the kind of things that you were talking about. I was talking to an investor the other day, and they said, can you list out some of the proof of concepts that you've built and prototypes? I stopped at 50. I mean, I genuinely, there's a massive long list of these things. I don't believe there's any limitation to people's ability to be innovative. And the barrier to actually turning innovation into something that validates whether it's a product or not is so low, as you've just seen in this talk. So yeah.
Thank you. I know it's sort of really random, but I thought actually we've had a lot of data around how, and I wanted to see what it could create and where you've taken it. And it's very different examples, very different visually.
Yeah. So yeah, as I say, that you're only limited by your imagination, and I like to think that people are incredibly imaginative and natural problem solvers, but maybe that's just me. I'm sure there are some outliers.
Tim, thank you very much. We shall wrap up. I think we've given everybody homework. We will send out your slides via Frank at Aspect. You can share those, and thank you all very much for your great questions and for engagement. And I look forward to seeing everybody on Tuesday for the next session in the series.
Thanks all.